How the next generation of Chinese view luxury. Now this is thoughtful. Hello, I'm Trevor Lai in Shanghai. China's post-90s consumers grew up in more affluent households, often as the only child, than any past generation China has ever seen. They are well-traveled, highly adept at using personal technology and social media, and very sophisticated shoppers, familiar with Western brands. This makes them the most challenging group of consumers in China that luxury marketers have faced so far. Ruderfin's Yilan Shou, BBDO's Hans Lopez-Vito, and China Youthology's Kevin Lee are in our studio today to help you make sense of this tough new demographic coming up. And League X's Stephanie Zhu will share a thought or two about the advent of WeCommerce in China and what that means for brands. But first, with us is Andrew Tsai, President and CEO, Greater China at Karl Lagerfeld. Andrew, thanks for coming in today. Can you tell us about what Karl Lagerfeld has in store for China over the coming years?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. So as a new brand to the market, indeed, we have a very ambitious plan in this Great China market. We opened our first store here in Shanghai last July, and now we already have 5 stores. So this, to a certain extent, demonstrates how important this market is to the brand. But of course, we know that in China, we don't just do business for a few years, we don't just grow for a few years, so there's a long-term plan. And at the moment, besides just opening stores, the focus is also on the organization. We need to make sure that we have the right team, and also on location to make sure that we open the store in the right shopping mall in the right city.
And just looking ahead at where you'd like to see the Karl Lagerfeld brand in the next 3 to 5 years in China, where would you like to see it in terms of growth? You know, is there a set number of stores or a set number of cities that you'd really like to establish a foothold in?
Based on my experience, basically in China, there's always surprise, because I started to work for this industry back to 15 years ago, and at that time, I never thought that China, the market could be so big, even as a local Chinese. So for us, of course, there's a plan. There's a very ambitious plan in terms of the number of stores we're going to open in the next 3 to 5 years. Probably we're going to have 30, 40 stores, and we're going to cover lots of cities. But I think the potential is huge if we position the brand right, if we offer the right product, and if we provide the right service to our customers.
Let's take a break. When we come back, Andrew will tell us whether China is headed for oversaturation of luxury brands.
Join us for the most prestigious mobile event in Asia featuring celebrity Jane Zhang. GSMA Mobile Asia Expo will showcase mobile products that will transform the future this June at Shanghai International Expo Center. Get a free pass at mobileasiaexpo.com/cn.
Welcome back. We have Andrew Tsai in our studio talking about Karl Lagerfeld's plans to reach future Chinese customers. So what are some keys for your brand to be able to reach the youth luxury market here in China?
The new generation of luxury consumers, obviously, they are getting increasingly important for any luxury brand in China, and now they already become the major source of growth in the market. But they're different from the previous generation. How different? I think basically they are more focused on the product itself compared to the previous generation, because for the previous generation, we all know that to a certain extent, they buy logo or buy the brand name to prove something, to prove they're rich or prove they have status. So the purpose of the purchase sometimes is not really on the product. But now for the new generation of luxury consumers, obviously they're no different from the young consumers in Japan or in US. The focus itself is really about the product. So we really need to make sure that we offer the right merchandise for the product, a good combination of luxury and also fashion.
And aside from providing the right product, is one of your strategies to reach this next generation of consumers to fortify your mobile and e-commerce establishments in China?
Yes, exactly. Basically, in terms of how to market the brand, this is also something that is changing very fast in China, because instead of simply using the traditional channel, like the advertising in fashion magazines or PR stories in fashion magazines, more and more we market the brand through the digital channel,
and
like
social
the
media.
WeChat or Weibo. Yeah. And I think this is the right channel to really target the young generation of consumers.
Especially the bloggers or the tastemakers, the KOLs in this market who really influence that next generation of buyer that you're looking at.
Yes. So I would say it's more like a multi-channel marketing approach. Instead of in the before, it's more like a single channel.
Great. Well, thank you, Andrew, for coming on Thoughtful China.
You're welcome.
Let's take a break to hear from our sponsor. When we come back, we'll hear from Stephanie Zhu, Yilan Shou, Kevin Lee, and Hans Lopez-Vito about how to build brand loyalty with young Chinese luxury shoppers.
Let's go!
As the Chinese youth are growing in a more brand intelligent and immersed society, they will be much more sophisticated in their shopping habits and expectations. Rather than using conspicuous logos as a way to flaunt their wealth, they will be using a new method, post-purchase sharing on social media. While a consumer can only take so many photos of a new product and post them on Weixin, they can take many more photos of an experience where a brand provided them a VIP service, such as horseback riding or meeting with celebrities. As luxury brands are more ubiquitous and can be easily bought at discount on the gray market, on flash sale sites, or on international outlet stores, the wealthiest young customers are looking to distinguish themselves as not only people who buy name brands, but as true discerning VIPs. These elevated brand perks will be instrumental in attracting the top tiers of young customers. Furthermore, they want a through-and-through digital experience as well, not only post-purchase personal sharing. With the advent of e-commerce and the coming of more efficient stores, young shoppers will expect a new level of convenience in shopping. Being able to immediately post what you bought off e-commerce will replace the big logo shopping bags. For the brands courting young consumers, the complex counterpart of offline and online experience will only be furthered.
Thanks, Stephanie. With us now is Yilan Shou, Managing Director, China, and Senior Vice President at Ruderfin Public Relations. Kevin Lee, Chief Operating Officer, China Youthology, and Hans Lopez-Vito, Executive Planning Director, Greater China at BBDO Proximity. Yilan and Kevin, thanks for coming back. And Hans, welcome to Thoughtful China. Let's start by talking about the post-90s Chinese generation shopper today. They grew up in the most affluent households of any previous Chinese generation, and they're starting to enter the job market now. Stable incomes, a growing economy, albeit at a slower pace. Do you think this bodes well for luxury brands moving forward?
Well, I think that it depends on how you define luxury. The post-90s will definitely be spending. Like you said, they have the affluence to do it. The question is, what are they wanting to spend on? And it's really a redefinition of what luxury can mean. They will want to buy great things. They have grown up buying great things, great products. They know what luxury is. They know what good experience is, and they will be wanting more of that. But the question is, it's just not about more of it. It's about what types of it. Conspicuous consumption, and just consuming for super high price points is definitely not what you're going to see in the next generation. It's not to say that they're afraid of a high price point. They're definitely not. But they're definitely not going to be just buying things because of a price tag or because it's flashy. It's not to say also that post-90s will not be flashy. They will just know and choose what areas they want to be flashy on. And it won't be everything.
I think I'm quite confident about the appetite for luxury among the post-90s. At the end of the day, we need to remember that I think luxury is a mindset. And for a consumer to actually buy into luxury, they need to have the right mindset for that. Our research at our agency at BBDO seems to suggest that about 50% of consumers in the post-90s generation will probably not be so keen on luxury, simply because They're looking for practicality. They're looking for something probably more rebellious, less of a status quo. But yet that still leaves you a huge percentage, about 50%, who are already engaged in luxury or will probably engage more once they get to a point where they can afford it.
So does this shift in the consumers' tastes and their preferences and habits bode well for new brands compared to some of the larger traditional houses like LVMH? Is that better for the new designers, or does that mean it's actually going to be a more difficult landscape for all the brands?
There's clearly an opportunity because from our China luxury report, it's clearly they come from want to show my status into want to show my personality. And the post-90s generation, it's all about me, my personality, as well as whether this brand goes well with what I want to show off. So clearly there is an opportunity for this niche brand, such as you might know, Christian Louboutin that went into this market, I think 2 years ago, last year or 2 years ago. Basically, they didn't do any advertisement and all shoes went out. So that's a symbol for me to see how many people they get familiar with all the brands. But that doesn't mean every niche brand will have the place. At the end of the day, whether you will be able to fly your brand high really comes from whether you can showcase a very obvious personality, a so unique positioning that people can't help get into it. It's not blah blah, it's something really means something to that generation.
Now, Louboutin is special because prior to coming into China, obviously they had a huge amount of success overseas, and they also had celebrity, endorsement and things like that that really helped them hit the ground running in China. If you're a newer brand overseas and don't have that sort of marketing clout, what would you advise them to be doing to enter this market and talk to the post-90s Chinese consumer?
I think Chinese post-90s consumers are very well wired and well connected. They know what's happening around the world. And I think to believe in a notion that you can make it in China as a luxury brand without having made it elsewhere is probably very false. You need credibility before you get here. You won't build a luxury brand from scratch just in China. People will look abroad and see who's using you. Are you successful in Western markets? They still take their cues from there. So I think just to come into China without having built your heritage, without having built traction elsewhere in the world, you'll be seen as over-patronizing to Chinese consumers, and you'll be seen as a brand that doesn't respect the sophistication and knowledge of China.
Well, but get into one point, I think one thing is never bring in a fake brand. That doesn't work nowadays. It did work sometime in the past, but the time is already
What do you mean by bringing in a fake brand?
There are Chinese brands that they get a brand name overseas, then they come back saying this is an international brand. In the past, it did work in the past, but nowadays, forget about it. People all travel around, they know which is true, which is not.
We've worked also in the past with foreign brands that have conjured up brands just for China. And where are they now?
Where are they?
Not anymore.
Yeah,
not
but
around.
I think for a niche brand, you enter this market first to make it very clear who you are. And to make it simple. Don't make it so sophisticated to understand. Make it simple, standing out, easy to remember. Then you find your real target audience. Don't want to cover everybody. You don't have the budget to cover all the advertisement and want to get the market from Louis Vuitton. No. You find exactly who want this lifestyle.
So, interesting point by Hans. You're talking about the importance of establishing your success overseas. Do you think that also is informing why some of the hottest Chinese designers currently, like Masha Ma, who's been on our show before, they're gaining traction because of the fact that they've shown in London and Paris, and are therefore, when they set up back in China, they actually have an advantage over some of the local designers who have only showed it perhaps Shanghai Fashion Week?
Absolutely. I think that's the paradox about Chinese luxury brands. For them to succeed here, they need to have a strong following abroad, or at least be able to demonstrate that they do have traction abroad. We've heard high net worth individuals, for instance, post-90s, post-80s, who tell us that for me to actually subscribe or to look at or consider a Chinese brand, it will be quite helpful actually if they see a Western celebrity, for instance, actually using it. So that still plays a factor.
So that's still a factor, the sort of Western face, holding a product is still something that sways even this
Take into
post-90s?
consideration luxury is aspirational. So when you talk about luxury, you're not buying the material or a bag. You're buying a lifestyle. And what the lifestyle, the luxury buyers looking into, probably most of them are looking at international level lifestyle. So it makes sense to some of them that there is an international celebrity endorsing this product or this brand. But not necessarily, again, there are niche categories, there are niche consumers, but generally, yes.
But at the same time, it's interesting you say aspirational being a key driver. We've seen recently sales reports, coming from the likes of Michael Kors or Coach, really evidencing in China that affordable luxury is a segment that's really doing well.
It doesn't prevent them from being aspirational, because Coach was telling the New York lifestyle. If you look at the advertisement, look at the way they present themselves, it's all about New York.
So in other words, aspirational, whereas before it meant I can afford this. I'm wealthy enough to afford this.
We always say you shoot very high, you get middle. You shoot middle, you get low. Right?
I think Coach is a very interesting case study because it's perhaps one of the few accessible luxury brands that have done really well in China. And it's done so simply because in everything that they do, they behave like a premier luxury brand, with the exception of pricing.
Everything from their marketing to
how they communicate, how they talk about their materials, especially lately, their heritage, where you can find the stores, the store experience. They'll be in the same floor as the Cartiers and the Tiffany's and the Gucci's of this world in the shopping mall.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll find out which brands are ready for the next generation of luxury shoppers.
AdTech China. AdTech China. AdTech China. AdTech China. AdTech China.
Welcome back. Our topic today is what luxury brands need to know about the next generation of Chinese consumers. Speaking of marketing, Kevin, I know in the digital realm, you're particularly well versed, and we've talked about how the importance of marketing to this generation includes a digital strategy. What are some of the tools and tactics that brands are using successfully in China to reach this generation of shoppers?
The fact of the matter is with digital is like the air we breathe, and especially for post-90s, they're truly the first digital natives here in China. I mean, that's just how they interact. They don't see that as a specific channel that they choose to go into. It's something that is around them. The content that's around them, again, is something that they've grown up learning how to curate for themselves and learn how to filter for themselves. Going back to the conversation we had before about aspiration or how do brands relate, it's all one question, which is, and as Elaine talked about it before, it's about authenticity. It really is about, is the brand truly transparent and truly meaningful in something? It's not just a brand name, it's just not a logo, it's not just a price point, it's not even just a look or a style. A brand is really, a luxury brand is really as transparent as young people should see it as, which is an organization of people that are doing things in the world. And when we talk about aspiration, we're talking about a luxury brand who is showing what aspiration can mean for today's world, which is not about I'm going to be able to buy that yacht 10, 15, 20 years from now. It's about how can I live an exquisite life today in the price point that I have, in the situation that I have. How can I make every moment of every day lovely? And how can a brand understand that? And how is the brand providing that for me? Now, when a brand is able to do that, whether that's abroad with foreigners or whether that's here in China with Chinese celebrities, it's the same thing. It's showing applicableness. It's showing how a brand and people are living life together. And what happens with digital, going back to the original question, is that digital will capture that. It'll capture that in people using the brand, applying it to their lives. The stories will come out of that, whether that's in video or whether that's in posts or whether that's in whatever. It has to happen in all those different facets. And it should be consistent. And how is that consistent? It's consistent when the brand is interacting consistently. And as the brand interacts consistently with all of its people, whether that's celebrities or normal people or leading edge people, those stories, that content will come out in all those different facets. And it will create the story and the authenticity for the consumer to understand.
So authenticity is something that we've talked about on our show, many times with both branders as well as, experts in other industries. But the concept itself is here. I mean, can you talk about brands that have delivered and communicated well specifically and what they've done that has helped enforce that authenticity on a consistent basis?
Well, like I can just share, in terms of some examples. You mentioned before about kind of like a different type of luxury. What was the word that you said?
Accessible luxury.
Accessible luxury, and absolutely, we're seeing that, especially with post-90s today. They're not just going for the bag or the shoe, that item, the car. They're talking about really the detailed exquisiteness of every part of their life. So, I mean, young people today, they're, for example, Lamy, L-A-M-Y, the pen, and that's quite a luxurious thing. And yet young people love that. Why? Because, they're today finding that they enjoy writing notes to each other. They find that that's a pleasurable experience. It's a small experience. It's something within their life. And so why not spend the money to buy something like a Lamy pen? What would go with that? A Moleskine notebook. And so these are smaller, more accessible luxury that young people are absolutely going for today. They're not just saving up all their money to buy the bag or the dress or whatnot. They're really going into every single detail. I mean, that can go into things like coffee and tea, things like that. They are going to be thinking about specifically, if they're looking at that area and that part is very important to them, like if this person is a writer or they just love to write notes, they're going to buy the best thing to do that. Now, another post-90s might not write notes, so they won't buy that. So they're very specific about not just everything luxury, but what is luxurious to them. What is the luxurious experience that is important to them because it speaks to who they are and how they live their life.
Ilan, any examples spring to mind in terms of?
From my perspective, the high-end luxuries, most of them are slow on digital. There is a concern on distance, because usually luxury is supposed to be mysterious. That's an important part of the luxury brands, that the mysterious adds their charms. So now digital exposed the brand 724 to their customer. Are they ready for that? That's a question I always ask our clients. I think most of them are not ready yet. But there are some brands who's making these changes, such as Burberry. If you look at how they leverage the digital, the show that the model worked together with the digital tech really amazes a lot of people. It was retweeted on the online and in a lot of areas that make people feel aspirational. So these are the areas I think luxury are working very hard on. But whether they are ready to get close to the brands, to their consumers every day, every minute online, that's a question I still don't have the answer.
Ilan, Kevin, Hans, thanks for being on Thoughtful China. That wraps it up for today. Be sure to subscribe to us on Youku, Tudo, and YouTube. You can also follow us on Weibo and Twitter and join our LinkedIn group. I'll see you again.